Welcome to the Principal Podcast, where we talk about how the best professional services firms grow. Whether you're looking to scale your firm or learn from the stories of founders and leaders who've done it, you're in the right place. Join us as we interview the best leaders in professional services. Let's get on with the show.
Good morning, everyone. Today we have the opportunity to speak with Adam Gray. Adam is the CEO and managing partner of Frontier Consulting. They help private equity firms and businesses improve operational performance through AI strategy, automation, international expansion, and business transformation, which sounds like a whole bunch, and to me it really is. But Adam's going to share his story as to how he got involved in consulting and in creating the concept behind Frontier Consulting. So Adam, go ahead and share with us, how did this all come about?
Sure. Yeah, I guess my backstory is a little bit long-winded, but I'll try and keep it abridged if I can. So my original background is computer science. That's what I trained my undergraduate degree in. And the only thing it really taught me is I never really want to sit behind a desk. And so when I came out of university, I did a multitude of different things. And I found myself ending up as a print room technician in a manufacturing facility. And they manufactured nutraceuticals, so protein shakes and this kind of thing. And essentially, while I was there, I started to learn a lot about the different systems and realized that if I digitized it, and immediately started falling back on the computer science component, that I would be able to improve the efficiency. So I went to the managing director at the time and the owner, and I put forth my proposal. And within a year, I had set about doing that, and we'd increased sales by about 350%.
Wow.
The upshot of that was the owner went out and bought himself a boat and actually a plane, and decided that he was going to cut my commissions. And so hell hath no fury, like a businessman scorned, I decided I'm going to go and try and do this myself. And essentially that's what I did. So this was back in the UK around probably 2009. And I raised some capital, and I went and did it myself. And it went pretty well. Ended up doing several million by year 3, and we actually ended up selling that. But I did have private equity backing, and so I got myself a nice little nest egg. But I was still going to be in the working environment for years to come. That's when I actually ended up turning to consulting. I became a freelance consultant, and I was at first working in the nutraceutical space, and then it extended to the pharmaceutical space and a number of different just manufacturing arms. And that brings us up to about 8 years ago when I ran into my now partner, which is Taylor Brown in Frontier Consulting. And we decided to create Frontier Consulting, which is a more traditional management consulting company. So a little bit of a strange background to come into the management consultancy field. Most people that I find in there, particularly from the Big Four, have come from an educational space. They've been trained and gone into it. And so the differentiator we found early on was I actually have real world experience, and I had a lot of experience of kind of putting my money where my mouth was, and dealing with strategic problems on the ground. So fast forward to now. And the only thing that's changed in the last couple of years is, once again, fallen back on that computer science degree that I never really wanted to use. And in the last 2 or 3 years, we've ended up with a huge acceleration in AI. And really, that's just become an overlapping lens on what it was that we were doing from a traditional management consultancy capability. And that's it. We've really just kind of increased our efficiency sort of tenfold. Our accuracy has gone up considerably, and our ability to be able to deploy for both PE firms and just firms in general has changed significantly over the last couple of years. And now I'm helping PE firms and their portcos to basically deploy some of these technologies within their investment structures as well.
Well, that is a fascinating story. Thank God for the guy who got greedy. Because of his greed, you were able to grow and expand and hopefully outdo what he did. So that was always the just desserts you always like to see as a story. But regardless of that, let's talk a little bit about, when you look at the problems, you come into an organization, you identify, share some of those problems, and why is it important for you in solving those problems?
Yeah. So one of the biggest problems we come up against with a lot of portcos, for example, is just inefficiency, and blind spots. And so our traditional method for going in there was we would go in boots on the ground and we would look into these different problems. We would engage with the teams, speak to key stakeholders. We'd do a lot of shadow work. The one thing that we're finding now is that we can just simply accelerate that process. And even if we aren't able to instill AI directly into the process, what we are able to do is take all of the discoveries and documentation that we bring in, and we can begin to model that against well-known models and synthesize the data really quickly so we can begin to strategize and deploy a lot faster. So that's a little broad, but I can give you an example. Really simply, we'd gone in to a sales team about 6 months ago, and the decision was trying to be made on whether or not they should increase the sales team by about 50%. And they had this huge backlog of contacts that they couldn't get to, about 10,000 uncalled people on their list that they knew were kind of warm leads, which was a huge amount. And they had thought, okay, well, the only way the only way we're going to do this is if we actually just really expand our sales force, and then there are going to be knock-on connotations for that. So we went in, and it seemed like a fairly obvious thing to do. It was kind of one and done. But then we looked into the AI element, and we realized that actually we could distill that 10,000 list that has been knocking around for 3 or 4 years down to the people who are sort of red hot, warm, and had just gone cold or had gone for another option over the last few years, just utilizing an AI caller. So we essentially created a strategy and then helped that team to create an AI system that actually physically called people and still reconfirmed them and got them on the calendar for the existing sales team. And so by doing so, we were able to take about 20 to 25% of that 10,000 list who were kind of red hot and ready to buy and ready to go, and really needed just a small nudge from the sales team to get them over the edge. So we didn't need to improve their capacity significantly. So essentially what happened is their bottom line went up. They didn't necessarily need to employ too many extra people immediately because it just went onto account management, and we cleared a huge backlog for them. So yeah, from a PE perspective, that made everyone very happy because, of course, it protected their bottom line investment.
Oh yeah, the cost avoidance of all the employees, the benefits and training and development. I mean, that's a huge bottom line hit of gain profitability, of money not spent. People always look at, I need to bring in more revenue. Sometimes it's getting the staff you have more effective and not adding staff, which is the biggest profit gain you can realize. So with that being said, you guys now have a proof source. Here's what we've done. We've done this with this type of organization. If there's similarity in organizations you might want to work with, you guys have got that proof to be able to do it. So let's talk a little bit about who those customers might be. Like, who is your ICP, your ideal client profile for you guys at Frontier Consulting?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I would definitely say it's private equity firms, first and foremost. The line that we've given there is, or the example that I've given is specific to a portco, a portfolio company. But the reason that came about is because we're engaging with these PE firms, and we do a multitude of different engagements. I'll give you an example of what we do on a first level basis with PE firms. So quite often PE firms are looking to do commercial due diligence. That's typically something that would fall under our remit. We would go and we would look at a company that may be under LOI or a letter of intent to buy.
Right.
And essentially we would check to see whether or not it was worth the squeeze, is the best way to put it. And there was a lot involved in that. A lot of it was secondary research. We would speak to experts, everything else. The secondary research component typically would take 4 to 6 weeks with a small team that we have in Frontier. We've now shrunk that down to about a week, utilizing AI. But also we've been able to go down to the nth degree of corroborating sources. So essentially every data point that we put forward has 3 corroborating sources or it gets exited. The biggest difficulty with commercial due diligence is that quite often you're getting showered with information. So we recently did one for a purchase, which was about 160 million in the automotive space. So they had a lot of sales data. They had a lot of SOPs. They had a number of different contractual obligations to customers. They had a huge sales team. There was a lot of different components. And so what we were able to do is take all of that documentation, the secondary research, the VOC transcripts for the clients that we spoke to, the experts we spoke to, the sales data, and we were able to synthesize all of it into what's called a RAG system. And essentially, that's just a fancy way of saying it's a system that can be queried and it will take into account all of this additional context. It's been very difficult even for top partners at PE firms, and similarly in manufacturing, in my space, to be able to synthesize all of that data and then be able to make a decision. It's easy when you see it in isolation, but to be able to make an overall decision for a buyout of that particular size is tough. But now we have the ability to use this PhD level inference engine and keep it on some really strict guardrails. And so,
Wow. Did your computer science background come into play on that?
absolutely, yeah. It's the only reason I think that we're able to do it. There's a lot of buzz around AI at the moment. It can do a lot, but the biggest thing is safety and accuracy. And from my perspective, being able to go through the code and understand the architecture and the tech stack and know that it cannot go off the rails and it's not hallucinating or making anything up is incredibly important. And so that's part of the infrastructure that we've created. That's just one of the things that we're doing for PE firms at the moment. And it is, I actually have a delivery this week of one of those two. So
Outstanding.
yeah, pretty happy
So
with how that's going right now.
Well, see, your degree did come into play and it does have value, especially with AI. Outstanding. That's good to hear. So let's talk about how your name currently gets out there for companies to be interested to work with you. What I'm meaning here is marketing.
Yeah.
So do you guys market through traditional, hey, I worked with a client before, and they tell somebody else? So referral network, which is primarily what many companies do in your space. They have proven testimonial track record. And so that company will tell another company, and or you can guide them, hey, call these people or contact them. They'll share the story. LinkedIn as a social media business networking. Sometimes people utilize that and are quite active on LinkedIn. An email campaign, as simple as it sounds, when you're sending out things to people of similar sizes to your ICP clients, and now you're just trying to grow your market that way. And then, of course, you could do it through conferences, seminars, or as you mentioned, you and I are talking on our first podcast, trying to get your name out there through other methods of media distribution. So think about which ones are working best for you currently.
So the best things that are working for us currently are sort of proven intermediaries. So we're talking the likes of Catalan, Blue Wave, those kinds of third parties that can come along and they can point in a direction of someone who can take care of these customers.
Okay.
I think the reason that has gone so well over the years is that we just have 5 stars on delivery across board for every single project we've done so far. So we'll always go kind of above and beyond. The reason that that's always become our main source, in truth, is that, I'm just some guy from Wales. And a lot of what we see in this particular industry is alumni networks, Ivy League contacts, this kind of thing, which are the people we go up against often. And so we have these third-party intermediaries that have helped us. More recently, we are using LinkedIn. And I've found that cold email and cold messaging, particularly for the type of client that we're after, is very unsuccessful, especially over the last year or so. You probably find your inbox stuffed, as I do every single day with junk. And it's a lot of it's AI generated. Someone wants to try and help you find clients or something else. And so what I have found works best on LinkedIn at the moment, and has had a proven track record of about 4 clients over the last 6 months, is I utilize AI, but I only utilize it to expand my network. I will just contact someone and say, hey, I noticed we've got an overlapping interest. I'd be interested in having it in my network. They join, and then I post stuff about what it is that we're doing, whether it be in a portco or whether it is in a PE firm or simply just something about AI. And because I'm posting frequently enough, it comes up on their feed, especially because we're a contact. And then my inbox starts going in reverse. It goes in the other direction. LinkedIn is a massive behemoth. But I think people are just getting really bombarded with paid ads, with cold-driven emails and in-mails and everything else. And so that is how I have found that it is working so far. But I have a feeling before too long, even that will start to drop off because there'll be more people that cotton on and the noise will again begin to rise. So I think it's a game of, exactly. I think it's just a game of keeping ahead as much as possible. Marketing used to be 10 years ago, you set a Facebook campaign and you paid a couple of dollars per ad, no matter the kind of niche you were in, business or otherwise. Now it's an ever-changing target, and that target changes quickly. And so that's kind of how we're doing it right now. There's no extra bells and whistles. You know, we're a boutique firm. We get enough business to come through. One of the things that I also offer is an AI advisory. And so if people want to put me on a retainer for some of these questions that are coming up, then they can do so. And we just have a couple of hours a week that we can sit down. I can sit on client meetings, I can sit on portco meetings, etc. But I've found that that's actually something that is gaining traction in the LinkedIn space in particular, because there's no huge commitment. It's more of a month to month. We pay a retainer and we're happy so long as we continue to use it. And if we don't, that's fine.
There you go. All right. Then I was talking about, with your sale, you got different stakeholders within organizations. You've got decision influencers who you may have to have an initial contact with. I imagine you want to start in the C-suite whenever you can, especially with the larger organizations. And some of the companies you deal with could be small to 50, 100 employees. And you might deal directly with the chief revenue officer, the chief financial officer, or the CEO. So what's your selling cycle like from a lead comes in, could be a referral or something else, to when you have fruition of a contract initiated?
Yeah, good question. I think for us, where we beat a lot of people is speed to lead. So either it comes in via a channel like LinkedIn, or it'll come in through a third-party intermediary. We'll make sure that we respond within an hour. And typically that is with credentials of previous work that we've done that actually adheres to that particular project. So nothing much, just a couple of 100 words, 2 or 3 different exercises of what we've done that proves our track record and our experience that's relevant to what they're looking for. Typically from there, we find that our percentage of conversion to go to the next step of an actual in-person call like this is about 50 to 60%. And then, yeah, it's reasonable. Then different companies have different cycles, but specifically in our space, we're looking at, I think the typical thing, people want it signed in a couple of weeks. Everything is always, we need it quick. But the actual timeline is normally about 6. We're often not creating that slowdown. It's just little things that need to be kind of tied up along the way.
Now, to clarify for the audience, you meant 6 weeks, not 6 months.
6 weeks. So we will, we will tie that up in 6 weeks. We can do it a lot shorter too. But typically there's a lot of diligence to be done, especially when we're working with a new company. If we've worked with them before and they're just coming back to us for a new project, perhaps they've got a new LOI, perhaps they want more diligence done or investigative work, something like that, then, we're looking at a week to a week and a half. But we already have that rapport. So conversion rate on people we actually speak to on the call, typically they're looking into multiple other people, whether they're using an intermediary or they've found us online. It's rare that we have someone just talking to us. And normally we find we're going up against one of the big 4 at least. Our conversion rate on what comes through is about 25 to 30%. So still reasonable, I think.
Yeah.
We've honed that down over the years in terms of what it is that we deliver. We always try and be quite heavily impactful and extremely relevant. So we do our research before we have a call, but we try not to overwhelm those people with information. And we find that it works quite well.
Good. So now let's talk about another critical element, retention of existing clients. And you work hard to get a customer. The last thing you want to do is complete an initial contract and then they don't use you again. So what methodologies do you put in play for customer retention? And one thing I noticed that I liked, there was a comment on your background. You guys feel like you can put metrics in place on how AI helps solve things. Share that with the group because I'm curious about that.
Yeah. So kind of a double barrel question there. So first of all, how do I go about retention. That's
Right.
something that's actually plagued us a little bit. And the reason I think it's plagued us a little bit is quite often when people are looking for a company like ours, they're looking for a resident expert in a particular field. So be it,
Right.
tech or manufacturing or something that I've done, and it's a one-off project. Or it is something like, hey, we're doing diligence and we've got this LOI and you fit the bill. And so you're kind of project bound a little bit unless you
Right.
have the right client. And so one of the things that I've created over this last year is that AI retention component. So someone can bring me on as an expert, pay a small retainer, and I don't just sit there and wait for them to call me. I actually provide them with information, which kind of leads into your second question. So let's say it's a PE firm. When we start the retainer, I'll actually look at the different portfolio companies that they have, or a selection thereof if they have a massive amount. And I will set up some uh, essentially AI algorithms in the background that do several things. Number one, it sends them a memo each week to check, or rather to tell them what's going on in the particular vertical that they're in. So they can understand a little bit more about the market sphere of that particular business rather than just how that business is doing. Number two, we'll give them a snapshot of metrics. One of the difficulties that we have seen for PE firms is the flow of metrics from these portfolio companies up to them is not always transparent. Sometimes they have to send, personnel, get boots on the ground.
Okay.
We try to integrate with the software they have in the portcos, pull out a little bit of that information that's extremely relevant, and they'll want to see as a bit of a snapshot. And we'll just create a dashboard or even just a weekly newsletter as a PDF. They'll get fired to them. So every week they're getting something from me, and they know, and I'm, Frontier is kind of front of mind, so that when they do have a question, the phone rings rather than them looking at the retainer 3 months later and realize, oh, we haven't used this. Let's cancel it. And so that leads to follow-on work too, because the retainer is simply advice and some of these mechanisms that I've put in, and I can sit on some calls. But if they want some actual work that would fall under the traditional component of Frontier Consulting, that's when we step in and we can offer to do it. And because they're on the retainer, we can then offer a slight discount so that it's even easier for them to come with us.
So contractually, it makes it more convenient, and more importantly, you have the proof sources along the way with your dashboard and other items. They can just check to validate things are working out. It's huge you're doing that, because people don't do enough where there's the written word. We have so many things that are theoretical, spoken to each other. The reality is when you look at something and you see it, it's tangible. And they tend to like that. I find most of my clients do, and I imagine yours do as well. So
Mhm.
let's talk about challenges ahead for Frontier. So as you look at the rest of this year and heading into 27 and up to 2030, where do you see the biggest business challenges ahead for the growth of your company?
Yeah, that's another very good question. I think we kind of suffer the same challenges as a lot of boutique firms. And market challenges. And so just to expand on that, I've been quite fortunate because I do have this computer science background, and we've been able to add this AI element on top. And it's done two things. It's accelerated our accuracy and our ability to be able to do these projects at speed in the background,
Right.
but also it's reduced some of our overheads. We had analysts who would sit at a computer for 8 hours a day and do secondary research for 2 months at a time just for a single project. And I've been able to reduce that down to 8 minutes at a computer.
Wow.
And so that significant difference, especially along with the tested accuracy, means that it's freed those analysts up to now do other roles. And so
Right.
they can
Handle
step
more
in.
clients. Yeah.
Exactly. So we are very fortunate in that sense. But I will say that the boutique firm space, and I can say 100% for sure, but I can just say it from my lens, has shrunk a little bit over the last 18 months, where we've had some economic turbulence, and we've had the advent of AI, because a lot of people are realizing that they can use it to answer at least broad and basic questions, and think that it may solve all their problems. And now we're having a little bit of a resurgence where people have realized that it hasn't solved all their problems, has not been implemented in the right way. Perhaps it wasn't as accurate as they put the faith into. And so we're finding that people are kind of turning around and looking to someone like myself and Frontier to alleviate some of that burden and rehash and go over and make sure that it's actually working out correctly. The difficulty that I see for the next year or so is keeping up with that, and someone not creating a new model or some crazy advancement in AI, which seems to be happening very quickly, where they can just ask it and step away for a week and then come back and it's kind of put all this stuff together, at least from secondary research, that it can.
Claude on steroids.
Claude on steroids, which is feasible, but it misses a number of different pillars. You're not getting primary research, you're just getting secondary, you're not doing the VOC conversations, you don't have that human intelligence layer, you don't have the experience. And so I really hope that, I'm sure a lot of wise investors will realize that that's the case. But there's definitely a lot of sort of mid-market companies and investors out there that are rushing towards this. Equally, there are people on the other end of the spectrum who are waiting to see how it plays out. So we just kind of have to fight in the middle. I think we're well positioned to do that.
Yeah, I think so too.
Because of my experience.
The unique component you have of what we started the whole conversation off with today, your degree in computer science, is becoming a paramount issue and potentially your success. So
Yeah.
tell me a bit about where you see the biggest opportunities for your company in the years ahead.
Yeah, I think that this is speaking to the wider market, and this is a precursor to my answer. I'm assuming, as I'm sure a lot of people are, that there's going to be some kind of economic downturn, whether we see an AI bubble burst or some kind of housing market crisis or something similar. And I think in those cases, people are going to feel the pinch, particularly in SMEs and across their business portfolio. And so then they really will start turning to AI, even if they weren't a believer before, to see whether or not it can enhance their bottom line. I think that's the space that we are going to be playing in order for us to be able to survive. But I say that with a little bit of bittersweetness, because I think essentially what people will be doing is saying, okay, we can't afford to retain this 15% of people on our bottom line. Is there a way that we can conceivably replace them? And so I'm very conscientious about what that means. And I'm certainly proactive when we deliver a strategy for companies to say, hey, yeah, we can automate this particular process, but that means Jan now has 80% more time to be able to go and do this stuff, and she has the experience, or whatever the case may be. And so we tend to put those in our strategy and our deliverables so that people have an understanding of what they're going for. There is always an element of people who just want to go, no, okay, we're just going to get rid. But
Right.
those are some of the repeat business customers we're seeing come back.
Well, when you look at it, we have chatted now for 30 minutes and it just flew by, and I really enjoyed the conversation. I hope you did as well, Adam.
I did.
And I think I know a lot more about what you do, and I think the audience who's listening is now going to have a bigger impact on what you can provide to the table for them at Frontier. So share with us, if you don't mind, Adam, what's the best way for people, after listening to this, to reach out to you and initiate a discussion with you?
Sure. Yeah, a couple of different ways. You can find me on LinkedIn. My name is Adam Gray, Grey, but you can also go to our website, which is consultfrontier.com. And if you're interested in the retainer, it's the consultfrontier.ai. So consultfrontier.com or consultfrontier.ai, both of which are either the management consulting sphere or the AI sphere, but you will come through to either myself or my business partner, Taylor Brown.
Well, I've enjoyed the conversation, and I think one thing that everyone who's watching can tell their kids if they're going to college, computer science might be a major you not want to stay away from. Look what it did for Adam and his business. Even though he didn't see it at first, it came into play with technology, and that's what the future always holds, opportunity and change. Adam, really appreciate the audience today. Thank you for being on our show, on Principal Podcast. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, Dennis. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Principal Podcast. We hope you've learned valuable lessons and strategies to grow your firm and take your business to the next level. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening to this show so you never miss an episode. To apply and be a guest on the show, click the link in the description. See you next time.